This is America's Mayor Live, and we're probably doing what some of you are doing, and that is we're looking at the footage that is being released piecemeal about the incident in Memphis, Tennessee, the arrest and then the eventual death of Tyree Nichols that resulted in 5 Memphis police officers now being charged with is it second-degree murder? The exact charge, I think it is, but in any event, a very serious group of charges. And I must say, having not yet really seen the full footage, I cannot say, as others have said, this is the worst situation I've ever seen, because I haven't seen it, nor have most of the people who are commenting on it. They're commenting on what other people have said about it. And this could be the worst thing that ever happened. It could not be the worst thing that ever happened. But the vast majority of us really don't know because we haven't seen it. And what I find very, very troubling is what's happened in America. We assume that this footage is going to be terrible because we've been told it's going to be terrible. We've been told it's worse than Rodney King. Now, do these people want a riot? Is that why they're doing this? Why? I mean, if you're going to put it out, why wouldn't you put it out and say to people, this is raw footage. The police officers have been charged, as they have, with various degrees of murder, right? They're going to be tried. And this is going to get settled, in a place where we can be objective and fair and careful and find out if this was unjustified, which many people have assumed. And if it is, they're going to be punished severely. And if it isn't, because sometimes situations are much more complicated than they appear, and that's why we have a system of justice, and you can't prove their guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, just like many people who are acquitted, they'll be acquitted. And the fact that they are police officers should not mean that they are treated any better or any worse. I think there's sometimes the view that if someone is a police officer or even a public official, unless, of course, it's Biden who can commit any crimes he wants, they should be treated worse because they have a public responsibility. No, they shouldn't. They shouldn't be treated worse. They should be treated better. There's no reason why police officers should be treated worse than you or me. And there's no reason that we should be treated worse than a police officer. Before the law, we used to all be equal. We're not in Biden's America. We're not. And we'd be stupid to think we were. I sure would be stupid having had my house raided and my law office raided for nothing. So I don't believe the fiction. I grew up with it. I was dedicated to it. I am brokenhearted that it doesn't exist anymore in this country. But there's a double standard. And when I listened to the 2 days of buildup of this, I've said, combination of the press and some of our citizens, we have some of the biggest jackasses that ever lived on television. All they've been doing is talking about how terrible this footage is going to be. Not a single one of them have seen it. You create the situation if you talk about it that way. I mean, I'd be shocked if we didn't have violence. We're asking for it. We're predicting it. Why would we predict that our people would act unlawfully? I mean, even if this is the worst film footage we've ever seen, it doesn't justify smashing an innocent man's store down and stealing all his property. That's a separate crime. That's very, very serious. And it indicates the person who did it is a very dangerous person who probably is, when this is over with, is going to continue to do it, just as I believe the actions in 2020 that were condoned by the Democrats if not supported by them with bail money, or in some cases, entire releases of people who committed very serious violent felonies. We created the crime crisis we have in America. These people are just acting out what they saw in 2020. The way this should be handled is, if you have to put the footage out, I'm not sure you do before the trial, by the way, and I'm not sure you don't make it impossible for anybody to get a fair trial by doing it. But in any event, if you have to put it out, it should be put out with dispassionate comment, saying, don't draw conclusions from it until after the trial. I have tried enough cases, and I've seen enough massive disparities between what appears to be the case and what is the case to long ago realize that anyone who makes prejudgments about these cases is a biased person who has their own agenda. The best thing to say is, this is a very serious situation. It obviously would not result in an indictment if it wasn't. I have no reason to believe that anybody is being treated unfairly by the police or the prosecutors or anyone else there. If I did, I would tell you that. And if I find it out, I will. But I do have big objections to the fact that if there's violence there tonight, it will have been created by the buildup over the last 2 days, in which it seems like there should be. That everybody should be angry about this. And therefore, there are going to be people we know in our society who believe that if they're angry, they can steal your property, or they use it as an excuse to do that. We know that Antifa is involved in trying to exploit this. We don't know the depth of it. At least I don't know the depth of it. But there's been enough reports that Antifa is attempting to exploit this. They wouldn't be Antifa if they weren't. This is what they do for a living, and Black Lives Matter for that matter. We know now that a lot of what they did in 2020, their biggest funder is George Soros, Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And in many cases, so is the district attorney that was elected, so that in some places, like in Portland, Oregon, everyone arrested for things like burning buildings was eventually, their case was dismissed by the Soros corrupted DA. Now, I don't know, and we will check on this DA as to whether we have a fair and square DA there. Be good if we did. Police, I don't know. This police commissioner, I think, was fired at one point from another police department. And listening to her comments, I can't really give you a good, we're going to know before the end of the night or by tomorrow what kind of police commissioner we have. Now, let me give you my biased viewpoint on this, but it's a very educated one. If the mayor and the police commissioner don't want a riot, there won't be a riot. I never had a riot. 8 years. And I succeeded a mayor who kind of specialized in riots. I had a city where people rioted 4 days at one point, just went around beating up Jewish people. And the mayor didn't do a damn thing about it. Had to be stopped by Ray Kelly. Really acting on his own as a deputy police commissioner. If it wasn't for Ray, the damn thing would still be going on. And so I took over a city that was prone to terrible riots, Washington Heights, Crown Heights. Now, how come I didn't have one for 8 years? How come the next riot in New York City was when we got the next Democratic mayor 20 years later? Because you don't have to have a riot if you enforce the law. If you have a mayor and a police commissioner that use their police officers correctly. The only footage I have seen, and I'm going to reserve comment on it because I'd like to see it about 20 times before I play the game of second guessing, which I hate. I hate seeing these cops in general who, were 20 years ago and come back and still fighting the wars that they're not part of. And they forget what it was like when they were in the war. And then they can be Monday morning quarterbacks. Who knows how good they were as quarterbacks when they were quarterbacks, to tell you the truth. Most of them I never saw. But in any event, the only thing I've seen is the first confrontation with the with the with Mr. Nichols, and there's too little there to really draw a conclusion, except to point out that he runs away, which is a big thing. I don't know why you don't realize in an arrest situation that running away is going to activate an entire response by the police that is very, very serious, because they don't know why you're running away. They don't know why. I mean, it may be you're frightened as hell. It may be. Although I've found that people who are frightened of the police also when they submit. Usually people run away from the police. People that are frightened that if the police get them, something's going to happen to them. And that's what the police assume. So let me give you some advice before we go into all the details of this. Now, I'm looking right now at something on television, which is Burn It All Down. And this was put out, I think this was put out by an Antifa organization to have some kind of a demonstration in New York. And so Ted, do you want to tell us what that is?
So, I didn't want to promote it on your account, Mayor, because we don't want to give it any more fuel, Dr. Maria, fuel. What we now have circulating among social media in the New York area is a graphic. I'll give it to you to read.
Yeah, it was just on Tucker Carlson.
It was on Tucker. And it's calling.
This reminds me of the stuff that they put out before January 6th that I put out and nobody pays any attention to.
Yes.
You found it. We didn't. Yeah.
Well, I put it out and then I gave it to the Justice Department. The Justice Department buried it.
But it's not from you.
But the Justice Department probably burned it. They were actually talking about taking President Trump out of office, which is a crime. But in any event, let's read this. This is call to action. That is their language, by the way. Antifa uses that a lot. Well, I guess everybody does. January 27, 2023, 8 p.m. at all NYPD facilities. Burn it all down. Bring rocks, heavy objects, pipes, spray paint, kerosene, lighters, umbrella. Travel in large groups. Wear all black. Cover your face. Now, if you listen to the John Sullivan podcast, this is a lot of the advice that he gives. Bring a knife or other tool to free unlawfully detained comrades. They have a X through the NYPD thing. It says Antifa something or other. Now, let's point out this could be a setup. I'm gonna make it a 50% chance this is a setup. So don't overreact to it. Don't overreact to anything, by the way.
That's right, Mayor. We couldn't.
That's the advice that a good mayor, a good governor, and a good president would give, not the unbalanced statement the demented one gave today. And what he should have pointed out was we have a criminal justice system so that things like this don't result in violence. And that if people are, and I don't even know if I would encourage protesting. I'd say if you really have to protest, then make sure you're very careful. You don't throw anything, because the minute you throw anything, you're going to get arrested. And we're not going to go easy on you, because whatever happened to this gentleman, justified or unjustified, now let's assume it was unjustified. There's absolutely no excuse for a third party to commit a crime totally unrelated to it. Nobody's saving him. Nobody's jumping in and getting him out of whatever the police were doing or not doing. That's over. Now we got to find out the truth about it in as fair a way as we can. But to commit another crime now, there's no connection between the two things. And of course, half the Democrats they have a right to be angry. Well, I guess anybody has a right to be angry, except you don't have a right to be angry over the 2020 election. But you can be angry about anything else except the 2020 election. But you don't have a right to throw a rock. And my rule, I had a different rule than these mayors who've endured billions of dollars of riots and 28 murders. And that is, we didn't wait until you did a lot of damage. We arrested you for the first incident where you did damage. And damage included spitting at a police officer, throwing a rock, breaking a window. The idiots today say, well, that would encourage more rioting if you act too quickly. If you read the studies of riots, which I did, by the way, including the Crown Heights riot, probably one of the better studies done. One of the reasons that happened is because the mayor allowed them a cooling off period. He allowed them to do small acts of violence that then escalated into going after Jewish people to beat them up and kill them for 4 days, a pogrom. And then he had another big riot in Washington Heights. The best advice that I can give, having been enormously successful in stemming riots, was you use the broken windows theory of Professor James Q. Wilson. When they see you arresting them and putting them in jail for throwing rocks, over a period of time, they stop. And Antifa and Black Lives Matter, believe it or not, if they knew that the police were going to be tough, they go to someplace else where the police weren't tough. They like to do this in places where the police have been backed off by misguided or worse mayors, and where they have DAs who like to put people, put criminals on the street. They pick places where they're the heroes, not the cops, like Philadelphia or Chicago. So
Mayor,
why does everybody go home? I mean, don't these people work? Why don't they go home tonight? What good are these people doing? The peaceful protesters. What the hell good are they doing? It's not the cops have been arrested. To the extent this is a racial incident, you got to really question it. There are 5 black cops that tragically killed a black man. There's apparently a lot of tape that shows that it's unjustified, but we haven't seen it yet. They're out there. What they're doing is they're demonstrating based on what the media told them. They haven't seen a damn thing yet. They're based on propaganda. I mean, it may all be true. They may all be false, but they have no idea. These people out there on a cold night.
Those are all reporters too, Mayor, by the way. I bet you there's about...
Well, the reporters all come in there, say to Antifa and Black Lives, we should go there too, because we're going to get on television and we're going to be able to show that we really command things, not the police. And we're going to go a little further in Soros's effort to destroy the police in America.
And there was probably some local community members in that have a legitimate issue here, and they want to kind of get to the bottom of it.
Well, but exactly. Don't give me that stuff about legitimate community people. If they're legitimate community people, what the hell are they doing out on a Friday night?
Man,
they're not going to find anything out about the incident.
I agree with you.
They'd be better off at home watching the film.
But it's Antifa and these other groups that come in, right, and they completely swallow up or take out and hijack any legitimate questions that local.
But the people coming out at night
are not local.
Whoever came out there at night is at minimum not knowledgeable about what happened.
Yes.
They have no better idea what happened than I do.
Yeah.
All they know is what they've been told, that this is the worst tape that ever happened in the history of the world. Now, what the hell are they doing out there until they find out if it is or not? At least wait until you see the damn tape. Make believe you care about the facts.
At this very moment, Antifa is sending their operatives from Washington and elsewhere to Memphis to gin up the crowd, to cause problems. It's what they've done for years now. We don't have to get into the other aspect, but even foreign governments take advantage when we have people here. Protesting.
I didn't end up stopping riots in New York City by spending 4 days predicting there would be terrible violence. I spent 4 days very matter-of-factly saying, you violate the law, you're going to get arrested. I think one time I may have said, you want to try it? Try it. I got a big jail.
And as you know, all the cable networks who are not doing so well in ratings. This is a ratings thing for them as well.
Oh, no, it can't be. I mean, it can't be that they want to see. First of all, I know Memphis. I haven't been to Memphis in a while. Used to have a great mayor there. He gave me a terrific gift.
The Peabody Hotel?
No, he gave me the best pocket knife I ever had. He used to give it out with his name on it. And he gave me the best pocket knife I ever had. And I went, first time I went there, it was before Christmas. And it was enormously useful in opening our Christmas gifts. I always meant to thank him for that. But he was a Republican mayor then. I think they probably have a Democrat mayor now.
While you were mayor?
See, I don't think you'd see all these people out on the street.
Was it while you were mayor? Was he the mayor?
Yeah, he's a very good mayor. I mean, tough.
Were you mayor?
Oh, was I mayor at the time?
I'm looking.
Yes, we overlapped a bit, but I think when I went there, I was out of office. I think I went there to give a speech to a law enforcement group, and then we had dinner, and he would give out little knives as like with his name on it as like a little keepsake or almost like a political thing, so that everybody knew who he was. So we're watching a little of it now. And toward the end of it, right before he runs away, they spray him. It looks like they spray him with something. But then he's able to get up and run away. So I don't know what the heck they sprayed him with. And the guy is only like 150 or 160 pounds. So any form of these sprays should work on him rather. I mean, usually the heavier you are, the more difficult it is for these things to get into your bloodstream. That's why some of these incidents have involved very, very heavy defendants. I mean, they're not necessarily stronger. There's just a lot more weight for you to deal with. And you got to understand a lot of this has to do with all the confusion about what a cop can do and what a cop can't do. And so, I mean, the Monday morning quarterback cops are all assuming that this violated this rule and that rule, and it may. But a lot of it also happens because they're afraid of punching them, or when somebody doesn't want to be handcuffed, it is difficult to handcuff them without hurting them. I mean, you're not a magician. Now, I guess if everybody was a black belt, it wouldn't be. I'm going to tell you a story about a police officer of mine. Shortly after I threw Arafat out of the United Nations, it might have been 2 days after, I was downtown, believe it or not, at the World Trade Center, going to the area that eventually was destroyed. I mean, it was for a conference. And as I got out of the car, a cab driver ran out of his car and started yelling and screaming at me, and about how he was saying something like Arafat's God and you offended God, or it was a cab driver, regular cab driver. He's running up toward me. He gets about halfway across the block, and one of the police officers doing my detail tackles him. And before you can say Mickey Mantle, she had him handcuffed. She had him handcuffed. It wasn't 5, it was 1. He was twice her size. No, not really. But she was a strong lady and ran every day and was in great shape. And she obviously knew some martial arts because she kind of flipped him around. But so after that, I really, I don't understand why the handcuffs don't go on faster. She sure as hell got him on like that. Now, she had the element of surprise. I could see, because it was a woman, I don't think he was ready for it. So she sort of had the element of surprise. I mean, before he could resist, she had his hands behind her back. Her handcuffs came out immediately, and boom, she just slapped him right on. And so I guess you look at that and say, and I do, I wonder, why is it these guys why don't they just put the handcuffs on him? But he is rolling around. He is moving around. They are thinking about now, if we do any damage, and maybe as they look at it again, they'll one police officer that I heard before said, I bet when they look at this, they're going to say, I should have done this and I should have done that. I guess so. Now, here's the unfortunate part. I haven't seen the rest of the footage, which is described as horrendous. But what are you describing it like that for? Let people see it. Take a look at it. It's not, and it's not for the we don't do justice by mass public opinion polls. I mean, the jurors are not the people watching it at home tonight. They're not in a position to really, even whatever they see on television, they're not in a position to decide what really happened. Or if you take polls and people say, well, 80% say they're guilty. What the hell kind of system is that? That's what they do that in a dictatorship. The mob will decide. That's what he's doing in Western towns, right? The mob decides. You did the killing. The whole town shows up and they want to kill you. No. We have a system It's taken 1,000 years to develop it, and the Bidens and the Clintons have destroyed it. And it's now there are two systems there's a system of justice and a system of injustice. And they've rendered it, it's like they put a stake in its heart. And they did it originally with the fixing of the Hillary Clinton case. We got somebody running around, we're talking about classified material, whether it's Biden or Trump or Pence. That one, destroyed 33,000 emails. And who knows what she did with classified material. You never even asked.
Were body cams around when you were mayor?
No, not really. No.
Was the idea something you heard about? Was it kind of started?
Yes, there was always, and there were some. I mean, there were video cameras, but they were much bigger, much more bulky, much more difficult to use. And there were certain incidents that were where you had, you had footage of Rodney King. That was before I was mayor. So there were crimes that were caught on videotape, sure, but body cams being on everyone and everyone having a video, a cinematic level video in their hands was not the case. No, I mean, this is a creature of the last 15 years. But if we're going back to 94, 95, 96, sure, we had video, but it was rare.
Yeah,
you'd have to get lucky to have it. Or, for example, I began my career prosecuting bank robbery cases. There were numerous bank robbery cases in the federal courts. It was a big crime, which ended with cameras. You don't hear many bank robberies anymore because there are cameras in all the banks, or there are cameras now we have the ATMs. We don't have banks to rob anymore, really. But even when we had banks to rob, bank robbery ended not because I prosecuted anybody else. They ended when the criminals. The criminals are smart. They don't commit crimes where they're going to get caught. They tend to go somewhere else and commit the crime. So in my case, I used to get blamed for creating a lot of crime in New Jersey because they knew that Giuliani was so tough on you, they would go to New Jersey.
I can thank you for the opening of The Sopranos then.
Oh, that you can, because I chased them all out of New York. Prosecuted all those.
The whole opening scene, right?
Prosecuted all of those. Hate those guys. One of them, whose boss paid $800,000 to try to get me killed, finally got arrested a week ago in Italy. That brought back the old days, I'll tell you. His boss,
Italian media.
Toto Rina. Yeah, we were on Italian media. Toto Rina put out $800,000 to kill me, and then he was told, really, by the American mafia, "Hey, pal, we don't do that in the U.S." And then he put out the money because I was working with Falcone, and he was right in the sense that he should have killed both of us, because we went on to put over almost 2,000 of them in jail. Falcone and I and Louis Free, and we really destroyed his organization. So he was right to want to kill us, but he didn't do it.
I think we should mention this to some of our viewers who don't know.
When I say he was right, I don't mean he was right, like morally right.
Yeah.
I mean, from the point of view of their.
Should have got rid of you. They would have been better off getting rid of you. Maybe, I don't know where I'd be right now. But
I remember, this is attributed to Turner, who started CNN. He told one of his employees when they settled the lawsuit with Fox and Roger Ailes, "I told you we should never have let them live. You let this guy live and he's going to crush us." And of course, Ailes did, right? Fox under Ailes had twice the ratings of CNN and MSNBC combined. He didn't beat them. He crushed them. He squished them into the ground. He removed their entire audience. I mean, I don't get any. I don't even know what goes on CNN. I used to hear it from other people at one time, so I never really had to watch it. If there was something bad on there, somebody would come and tell me. Now nobody even hears the bad stuff on there because nobody. I don't even think their people watch it.
I kid you not, Mayor. I had one person mention something that they saw on CNN in the last couple of months, and I kid you not.
They did a thing about me. I didn't watch. I mean, you won't believe this. I would never watch it. Why would I watch a propaganda outfit that's equivalent to Pravda do a news piece? I don't like propaganda.
The person was at the airport.
What?
The person who said they mentioned something they saw on CNN. And I just happened to ask, "Where are you?" They're at the airport.
At the airport?
Right? That's literally the only place I think CNN is now. I see.
Yeah, that really annoyed me. They were there, all, before the pandemic. Then I didn't travel during the pandemic, and I travel less now. But I used to travel I was on an airplane 8 times a month. Do you know from the time I was mayor until now, I've been to over 100 foreign countries, 90 separate ones, but over 100 foreign trips, probably 150 foreign trips.
Oh my goodness.
So I've been at every airport imaginable, almost, and it would drive me nuts. At some airports, I'd make them put Fox on. Now I would have them put Newsmax on. Oh, and by the way, get rid of DirecTV. Take it and throw it in the garbage. Just throw it in the garbage. What they did to Newsmax is unthinkable. Taking them off. I mean, it's not going to do CNN and MSNBC any good. Not only do they not tell the truth, everybody knows it now. Even their own people don't rely on them because they can end up getting misled. I can't think of anything difficult where they've given a correct report that I know about. Every time they give a report, for 8 months, I was a Russian agent to them. Maybe longer. How long was I a Russian agent? I don't remember. Why are you laughing, Dr. Maria? That's serious to me. I hated that because I'm about it. The only thing my parents agreed about politically was they both hated communism. One was a Democrat, one was a Republican. But they came together on the hatred of communism as if anything was going to destroy us, that would destroy us from within. You know how your parents turn out to be right and you always think they were wrong? I hope they're not right. I hope they weren't right. But I mean, sometimes it looks that way, doesn't it? Communism has made tremendous advances in this country. The whole infiltration of our school system is written by Marx, dictated by Marx and Engels, and the attack on our government, the tearing down of America. So the other footage today was the Pelosi footage, and that turned out to be really strange because I don't know why it just wasn't put out. It kind of makes a lot of it go away in the sense that it's still a little strange, but it's a little strange more from a personal point of view, and that's their issue. But there's no question the end result is the guy committed a crime that's unjustifiable, unthinkable. Weird that he would do it. Usually people attack before the police get there. This guy waited for the cops to show up to attack him right in front of them. I assume he didn't know he was on camera because that looked like it was a body. That looked like a body cam, right, Ted?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live, and a very special hello to our YouTube audience. We included a message in the comments below to kind of.
We got anybody from Memphis?
Oh, that's a good question. And we have in the past had people from Memphis.
Oh, yeah.
You're from Memphis. First of all, everybody, let us know who you are.
Great city.
Where you're tuning in from.
And by the way,
great barbecue, best barbecue in the country.
So I did check this afternoon because somebody mentioned it, and I checked it, and it's correct. Among the cities in America, they contain the Floyd fallout better than most. I mean, they didn't have major.
Memphis did?
It did not.
Detroit as well. I want to throw in Detroit, but yes.
Boston too. And it hurts me to say Boston because of the Red Sox.
I was going to say, for you to say that, for you to admit, for the
and on the other hand, we had terrible problems in New York. Not terrible. Yeah,
I remember seeing it.
Much worse than you think because they covered up a lot of it.
Madison Avenue.
Oh my God! Right past where we are sitting right now. They broke windows and right downstairs here. These are stores where people are leaving constantly because they can't afford the rent. So in a way, people sort of justified it as it was better than breaking up the poor people's stores. But still, that's a little ridiculous too, isn't it? I mean,
I see what they're saying. Breaking the law.
You got Dr. Maria. Nobody believes that anymore. The breaking the law is breaking the law. It depends on who breaks the law. If breaking the law was breaking the law, the president of the United States wouldn't be in the White House. He'd be in the big house.
Bingo. And of course, we saw that violence this summer.
Should have been prosecuted 3-4 years ago. It should have been prosecuted when the woman over in Ukraine said she wanted to come here and give up the offshore bank accounts. How come you didn't go get those, Barr? You never bothered to talk to the U.S. attorney in Pittsburgh that you sent me to talk to? Every time I see you, I look at you and I go, what a disgrace. What a disgrace you are. You had that hard drive? Ted, what happened to my computer with the Hunter Biden hard drive in it? Hey, Attorney General, you had this? Just open up to any page and you got a crime. We could play a game sometime. We could put it on. We could go like this, and let's see. There'd be a 1 out of 2 chance we'd come up with a crime. Oh, it might be failure to register as a foreign agent or tax evasion, or it could be money laundering. You're going to get a lot, or it could be massive bribery, or selling out to the Chinese communists. All in here. You had it for a year. If you had told us about it, there never would have been an impeachment of your president. You obstructed that by keeping this, Barr. This is before he turned. This is when he was acting like he really believed in justice. The guy at the FBI, there's no way to describe. There's no way to describe what he's done to the greatest, one of the 2 greatest law enforcement agencies in the world. The other one is the NYPD. And the Democrats have done a job on that too. They do a job on every city they're in terms of crime. They and the 50 or 60 Soros elected district attorneys all over the country who let criminals go free. And therefore, places like Philadelphia set records for homicide. And just in case you want to think about race, which I only point this out because it's so damn unfair. 85% of the people who died in that record year in Philadelphia were black. Wouldn't have happened if they didn't have Krasner, the DA you put there. Put a real DA there, those people aren't going to die. So who killed them? The former mayor of Philadelphia, Michael Nutter, made this very point in an article in the Philadelphia Inquirer about what a terrible district attorney Krasner is and how he gets black people killed. It's not just my point. He's the mayor of Philadelphia. He's the last mayor where crime was down. Remind you of some other mayor?
Is the tide turning politically on this issue when you see someone like incumbent mayor Lori Lightfoot in Chicago currently in 3rd place for re-election? Do you feel
I don't know if is she there just for crime, or is she there because she's done everything wrong? I mean, here's what I worry about Chicago, and I feel so sorry for the people of Chicago. 50 years of Democrat rule. Are you crazy? And you're going to vote for another Democrat? I don't care who's running. You're going to vote for another. We did that with Adams. Look what we got. Crime went up. I mean, you're going to vote for another Democrat. 50 years of Democrat rule. And every weekend, I don't know, if I lived in some of those neighborhoods, I'd keep my kids in and move out because there's a really good chance they're going to get killed. And the chance is they're not going to get killed by cops. That happens rarely. The chance is they're going to be one of the 20 that gets killed in Chicago this weekend.
And we won't see much from the media, including the so-called.
Oh, nobody. No. I mean, look, the killing of Mr. Nichols was terrible, but this happens all over every night in large numbers, and none of these people care about that.
Every night.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
But what are you talking? You're not talking about by police hands.
No, I'm talking about police.
Crime.
The police do, but the police murders are very, very rare compared to black on black murder.
In cities like Chicago,
Yeah.
Detroit.
So if I wanted to make a prediction about my kid, who would he be killed by? The chances are astronomically higher. He's going to be killed by another black than by a police officer, whether they have black police officer or the white police officer. That's the real danger. And you're not doing anything. And Black Lives Matter. Those I've never heard them say anything about these mass murders that take place every weekend in Chicago or the record. How about the record murders in Philadelphia? And 85% of them are black. I mean, that isn't a cause of concern to Black Lives Matter. Now, every single one of those murders was by a civilian, and probably 85% by other blacks. So what are you doing about that? If you really want to make it safe for black people in poor neighborhoods, and all you do with it is police corruption, you're going to save police brutality. You're going to save very, very few lives. If what you care about is the amount of murder that goes on there by civilians, then you're going to start saving lives. You're also going to find the police murders go down because it's the atmosphere of violence that creates a lot of the police shootings. In most cases, justifiable. In some cases, not. Now, how do we find out if it's justifiable or not? We don't find out about it with a bunch of irresponsible to much worse journalists telling us what we have to think. If we are civilized Americans, we find out about it in a court of law in front of a jury that tries people with a group of rules that are designed as best they can to get the truth out. And it's been 1,000 years of designing those rules, and what, we think we're smarter than those people who developed those rules over 1,000 years. So we do the best that we can to convict guilty people and make sure that innocent people never, ever go to jail. Do we fail at it? Sure. Does the mob fail at it more? Of course. Of course. I mean, you got to watch a Western movie to figure that out.
You find anybody from Memphis?
Pardon me?
Let us know. I haven't yet, but comment below if you are from Memphis. We'd love to hear from you. Comment a few times if you can, so we catch you if you're from Memphis, and of course also include any information you have on the ground in your neighborhood. If you're seeing anything, let us know what's happening. Of course, we want to sensationalize anything. We want to hear from people who are there and what they're seeing.
Yeah, in fact, what we want to do is to tell people, calm down, go home, and let the system that our civilization has created, so that when we are civilized people, let that system decide this. It's really better than these people in the street. It really works better than people in the street. It does. And it doesn't work perfectly. And I sure can tell you it's doing some very unfair things right now if you're a Republican or a conservative. But it's still better than, I'm pointing at, I have pictures over there. So, I read this article today in the Wall Street Journal, and I want to call it to your attention and see if anybody wants to say anything about it, including Dr. Maria, who's sitting there working on something, probably for a Sunday show, Uncovering the Truth.
What time is that on?
10 o'clock on Sundays, and you can get it all over America by going to wabcradio.com. You can get us in Memphis, or you can get us in
Detroit.
Peoria, Illinois, my favorite city. Remember, I mentioned Peoria, you said.
What town are you from? Okay.
Where are you from?
Can you watch
Houghton. Of
Can you
course.
watch it from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan?
If you
All the newspapers.
if you have one of these, or you have one of these, or anything like it, right? You just put in wabcradio.com, hit live. You can get it right now. I mean, right now, pretty soon Rita Cosby will be on. I think
WABC Radio.
in a little while, I think O'Reilly will be. Mark Levin will be just finishing. He's got 15 more minutes to go. And then O'Reilly will be on. And then the wonderful Rita Cosby. You can get that. You can get that where you are. You can also get the app. Makes it easier. Then you don't have to remember wabcradio.com. You just hit the app, and you can get Curtis, and you can get me, and you can get Greg Kelly. Good people.
Thanks for joining us. America's Mayor Live. Ask your questions. We have some good people. Eric says he used to listen to Rush Limbaugh on AM radio. So people are.
Rush Limbaugh and Hannity both began at WABC.
Colleen says hello from Idaho.
Idaho. I always wanted to go there.
Dr. Maria says she's always wanted to go to Idaho, Colleen. So
But we'll go to Idaho.
maybe we'll make our way to Idaho.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a week broadcast. Really what I want to do is travel around with my radio show and this and go to cities and do it with live audiences. I think that would be interesting. And then hopefully we're gonna hook up within a week or so our telephone, and you'll be able to call us. We can't take a lot of calls, but we can take maybe 3-4 calls each night. We'll see.
Jeep Girl, one of our moderators, says, "Don't forget about Colorado." So she's
Love Colorado.
You been to Colorado?
Yeah.
Yes, I got altitude sickness.
Altitudes, of course. Would you go, Colorado Springs or Denver? Well, Denver's not as high as.
I loved it.
I believe Denver is not as high as Colorado Springs.
I think that's right.
I played golf. I remember playing the first time I was there. I played golf early in the morning with my friend Denny Young, who is deceased. But Denny, we had to walk a long ways to the first hole, and Denny thought he was having a heart attack.
Oh, really?
Denny was always a little worried about something. He said, I said, Denny, way up, we're 8,000 feet above sea level.
I knew from watching sports growing up.
But the good part, you hit the ball 20 more yards.
So,
Yeah, that's-
for golf, exactly.
Yeah, Denny didn't get it for about 2 days. We're playing, and Denny was a very, very good golfer.
Who are we talking
But Denny Young, but he was only about 5'8". He wasn't a big guy, but he's a good athlete. He had been a hockey player, and hockey players make good
Who is
golf.
Denny Young? Just real quick, so
Denny Young was my friend for 40 years, and he was my executive assistant and chief assistant when I was U.S. attorney. He was my law partner. He was my business partner, and he was my counsel when I was mayor.
Okay.
And during the pandemic, we lived together like the odd couple for a good deal of time. And when I first started my radio show, he was here every day, like you were. And he died of prostate. Eventually, well, he really died. He had I think he died of prostate cancer. I think that was the official. But there were a number of things that happened. It was very, very tragic because Denny was one of the most honest and finest people that I've ever known. I mean, he was just a wonderful, wonderful, terrific human being.
Denny Young. And so you went to Colorado and took him a few days to realize that it was obviously the air, and he hit the ball 20 yards further. You were hitting the ball further in a golf tournament.
Oh yeah. No. I don't think we played in a tournament there.
Oh,
We
you
just
were playing golf.
we were there to give speeches and do meetings. And one time we were there for political events, but we would always play golf. They've got a couple of great golf courses in Colorado Springs.
Oh wow.
Beautiful golf courses in Colorado Springs. And I've been to Denver a lot too, including. I remember also been to a football game at the Air Force Academy. That's also a lot of fun. But here's an article in the Wall Street Journal, and it points out that the estimate is that at least the COVID deaths are misdescribed by at least double. Or maybe not the deaths, I'm sorry, hospitalizations. Government programs, this is an article by Leslie Beenan and Marjorie Smelkinson. Who are they? Dr. Beenan is a veterinarian who conducts research on zoonotic diseases and public health policy. Ms. Smelkinson is an infectious disease scientist whose research has focused on influenza and SARS-CoV-2. Jean Noble, director of COVID response for the UCSF Emergency Department, also contributed to this article. Now, here are their disturbing conclusions and something for you to think about. Government programs create incentives to overestimate COVID. Hospitalizations from COVID are typically less than half of COVID positive patients. When the CDC reports data from states, it ignores these efforts to discern which hospitalizations were actually caused by COVID. Many states reported COVID death anytime the decedent had a positive PCR test in the month or two before dying. Hospitals get a 20% bonus for treating Medicare patients diagnosed with COVID-19. So there's an economic incentive. But Dr. Maria, who was won the award as the leading rural hospital CEO 7 years in a row, would say that hospitals would never cheat.
No, I didn't say that.
No, I know you didn't. That's why I got you all excited.
My hospital would never cheat.
You think this could create a problem if they offered 20% more, and you had the person died of
We reported on it.
What?
We reported on the fact that they were over saying something's happening on the phone. That they were over putting who was in the hospital with COVID. We gave examples of somebody in a traumatic motor vehicle accident, and they may be admitted with a lot of fractures, but yet COVID is put down because you get an increase in payment. My hospital would never do that. We didn't actually see many COVID patients. But 2 physicians from California, emergency room physicians, claimed they were being pressured by their administration, and they were taken off YouTube. They were totally banned for it, and that was at the beginning of the pandemic.
I don't know if you can say that. I just got back on YouTube. I'm not sure you're allowed to say that. I know it's a country that used to have free speech, but
They got banned everywhere, Twitter everywhere.
well, it says here that we are not asserting the truth of this. We're just telling you what it was said here. Hospitals get a 20% bonus for treating Medicare patients diagnosed with COVID-19. It's in the Wall Street Journal. The American people should know it. Another incentive to overcount comes from the American Rescue Plan of 2021, which authorized FEMA to pay COVID-19 death benefits for funeral services. Did you know that?
No.
Cremation, caskets, travel, and a host of the benefit is worth as much as $9,000 a person, or $35,000 a family if multiple members die. By the end of 2022, FEMA had paid nearly $2.9 billion in COVID-19 death benefits. So if you can get the doctor or hospital to say it's COVID, they'll pay for the funeral. Now, how about this? While around 80% of requests for COVID death benefits have been approved as of January 1, some 80% of applications following Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria in 2017 were denied.
I don't think any hurricane should be named Maria.
I guess the FEMA has the right to take an emergency and to authorize the payment of death benefits that follow from that emergency if you die from that emergency. I didn't know that, so I'm extrapolating here. So here's sort of one indication that one was treated very loosely and the others were treated with great discipline. 80% of requests for COVID were granted. 80% of funeral expenses for people who died as a result of hurricanes were denied by the same agency. Several physicians told us they are concerned that hospitals are being pressured by families to list COVID-19 on death certificate. Here's a quote from one infectious disease doctor. Just try and leave COVID off the death certificate of a person who was asymptomatic positive and died in a car accident. Just try. No one was willing to be quoted by name. But you're not allowed to have anonymous sources for an article. I guess only if you're accusing Trump of a crime. Then you don't even have to have an anonymous source.
Of course, you're reading directly from a news article, correct, Mayor?
The overstatement provides a justification to continue the state of emergency, which allows Democrats like Newsom and the governor in New York and the governor in Michigan to continue to be dictators.
And of course, you were just reading from a
Wall Street Journal. It's in today's Wall Street Journal.
directly from a story in the Wall Street Journal.
I was.
Okay.
So it's not me. It's the Wall Street Journal. You have to.
So thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live with America.
The one other thing I wanted to point out here, that Democrats and Republicans are now equally complaining with a great, great quote from Senator Warner that the White House and the prosecutors are stonewalling them on seeing the classified documents so they can make an assessment of the damage to national security. And they say it's unconscionable that Biden is doing this. So, and they want to see both the Trump and the Biden documents. They want to see, is this much ado about nothing? Well, we got a problem here. Now, what is that going to mean? That means, what are these documents? We know that Trump took documents with him, that he is reviewing them to give his opinion and to debate or fight with the archivist over whether they're personal documents or they've been declassified or not. And there's a whole law that governs that, which, by the way, doesn't have criminal penalties. The Presidential Records Act. It could very well be that there are no criminal penalties for a president in this situation because of the special powers the president has with regard to classified information. They have to extrapolate a criminal penalty with regard to the president. It doesn't exist in the Presidential Records Act. And you could say, well, those other penalties still exist. Or you could say if Congress intended penalties for violating this law, they would have included them. And usually you don't stretch 1 inch to interpret a non-criminal law as a criminal law. That's the general rule of construction in a democratic, fair country, because criminal penalties should only be applied when we're absolutely clear that Congress wanted it to apply, and number two, when it's absolutely clear that somebody's guilty. At least that's the way I was brought up.
And Mayor, with just a few minutes left, we want to make sure we get a quick word in for our sponsor.
For Big John. So if you're thinking of moving, go to Big John. And Big John moved me, so I can personally attest that they know what they're doing. They are real professionals. They take care of your furniture and goods and belongings as if it's their own. They've been with Big John for 20, 30 years, many of them. It's a family business, but a big family business. And they got one of the best storage places anywhere.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live.
Want to and you go to bigjohnmoving.com and just put /Rudy. And also go to mypillows.com/Rudy and get some of those slippers or one of those sheets, or let's stick together here. And while you're at it, Patriot Mobile, who I'm going to contact tomorrow about my service here. You know, AT&T is behind DirecTV. Maybe we should consider sending a message to AT&T. I'll let you know on Monday. We're going to find out more about it, because I don't like this, taking Newsmax off. They're not a sponsor. They're not I'm on there occasionally. I like them, but I'm not tied up with them. I'm just tied up with the First Amendment. And to take them off is outrageous, because they'll tell you a little bit more. Not that they tell you everything, but they'll tell you a little bit more than even Fox will. They're less afraid than Fox, and certainly Fox is better than the communist stations. But there's a lot of stuff that Fox gets nervous about. And the worst part of it is it's all one-sided. And you have a right. I trust you. You have a right to know this. But I don't think it should be presented to you in hysterical ways like the buildup for this Memphis thing was. There was no reason for that. The buildup to it should have been, let's all stay calm and wait until all the facts are out at the trial, and then we can have a reaction.
Mayor, and you're a leader
of a lawful country. That's what we want to be, a lawful country.
YouTube removes Veritas video that exposes Pfizer.
Thanks for joining us for America's Mayor Live. Mayor, our final minute here on what is the fastest hour on the.
I would like you to please, because I don't have a chance during this hour, because it's only an hour, to really prove these things to you. I really have to more assert them than prove them. And I'd like you to go, particularly this week, to RudyGiulianiCS.com. CS is for common sense. TED is Ted is watching the demonstrations beginning in New York because of that memo that was sent around, which I emphasize may or may not be valid.
And Mayor,
We can't verify that that's actually from Antifa. What I can tell you is I do have a number of those from Antifa for other things, and it looks very much like an Antifa communication. Now, if you're a good good undercover guy, you're going to create one that looks like that. So, but I have no doubt that Antifa wants to exploit this. I mean, they wouldn't be Antifa if they didn't, or Black Lives Matter. I mean, they're communist organizations supported by their major donor, George Soros, who's in the business of helping to create crime in American cities. That's what he does with his DAs. He takes cities that are peaceful and makes them into places that set records for killing Black people. Thank you, Soros.
and any homework for the audience for the weekend before Monday?
Go to MarieGiulianiCS.com. You're going to see all the documents there. And then when you meet up, if you got one of these liberal friends who's a denier, because they're the real deniers, you can shove it up there, you know what? Just shove it right in their face.
What's the CS stand for in?
Common sense. I already did that while you walked out of the room. See? But you can take, here's one of the ways you can use RudyGiulianiCS.com. You could get like the video message that we should have played again tonight. We didn't have the time to do it. We should play it every night so people memorize it. The video message from Biden when he blows up the lie that he didn't know about Hunter's foreign dealings because he calls them about them and just admits that he read all about them. You should play that for all your liberal friends. Like if they come to dinner in your house, it should be on the public address system, and they could be greeted by their hero Joe. Does anybody really have him as a hero now? Maybe a few nursing homes. I don't know.
Thanks for joining us.
Why don't we just sign off with that? It'd be like some people use music. We're gonna use the criminal in the White House as our thing here. Done. Come on. Come here. Here it is. Ready?
You call. Nothing doesn't hurt you. Just want to talk to you. I thought the article, at least the thing online, it's going to be printed to one of the Times, was good. I think it's clear. And anyway, if you get a chance, give me a call. I love you.
He thought the article in the Times was good, and he's in the clear. You know, the mafia guys used to use that thing. You know, they don't worry, we're in the clear. The article in the Times was all about Hunter and Joe's foreign deal with China. It was all about the deal where it says 10% for the big guy. So when he says he never talked to or knew about, he just admitted that he knows about the biggest one of all, biggest foreign deal of all, a $30 million deal with the Chinese communists that he's part of. Just admitted it on tape. What do you need? Have a great weekend. God bless America. And stay safe. Don't overreact. I don't know. Stay home and watch the video instead of protesting. But gosh, if you're going to protest, don't do anything illegal. There's no justification for that. None. And if you do, I hope they put you in jail for a long, long time. God bless America.